All right, let's get more reaction now to President Xi's speech with current affairs commentator Einar Tangen in Beijing. Welcome.
Thank you.
Now, the word cloud of Xi's speech shows the most commonly used word was global. Why is this sense of a global community such an important part of China's pitch to the rest of the world?
Well, over the last 15 years, you've seen a complete polar change. Back then, it was the U.S. talking about climate change, the need for globalization, all of these things, good governance. Now, at Davos, you see this kind of change where it's now China who's saying these things, and the U.S. seems much more reluctant. So it's really been a wild ride, and it'll continue to be so. Unfortunately, Donald Trump is battling not only his three largest trade partners, but also his traditional allies, and it seems in some cases, the historical and economic facts.
And as you touched on trade, we know that Xi mentioned that no one wins as a result of a trade war. So how serious is the concern in Beijing about a potential trade war?
Actually, it's very serious. I mean, it's not something that Beijing is pushing. It's obviously in reaction to whatever Donald Trump has in his mind. I mean, what you've seen here in this speech is a kind of reversal, but not by design, but by default. The world business world looks for stability, the ability to predict what's going to happen. And right now, with the U.S. and Donald Trump, that's very, very difficult. Whereas Xi is trying to assure the world that there is a steady component, China, that is willing to push things forward.
Now, it's apparent that China does want to be able to sell its goods around the world. So in turn, then what are Chinese officials doing to open up borders and markets to foreign competition in China?
Well, that's going to be one of the big sticking points here. I mean, a lot of people at Davos were saying, okay, this sounds good, but you have to walk the walk in addition to talk the talk. And, it's one of those things. Everywhere in the world, people are talking about openness, about development, new technology, all of these things, but talking doesn't make it happen. I think in some cases in the U.S., we feel left behind by this, the globalization that we, in fact, started, and we're now rethinking it. And I think there are reasons to do that. But a lot of the changes that are occurring here are because of forces beyond globalization. It has to do with the efficiency. As more workers are displaced, not by moving to other countries, but because of automation, robots, all of the things that are going into, even things like driverless cars. So a lot of what we're talking about here is coping with the future, trying to figure out how capitalism and socialism work together in a productive environment.
Now, Einar, let's also look at something that's a hot topic, especially as we saw from President-elect Donald Trump. He was talking about the yuan, China's currency. Now, President Xi said that the PBOC won't purposely devalue the yuan. Why is that important?
Well, it's a little bit different from what they're saying, so there's going to be some strong reaction to that. And what that means is China has basically burnt through $1 trillion supporting the yuan, keeping it artificially higher than the market would actually put it. So, Beijing is saying, look, we're doing our bit, but we can't keep this up forever. So it's going to be a reality. I think what they're trying to do is make sure that there are no short, sharp shocks that have unintended consequences with with world economy and other surrounding economies. Unlike the US dollar, which is continuing to rise and putting a lot of pressure on the $4.5 trillion in debt owed by emerging and developing countries.
And now we should remember this is obviously a very historic time, with the first time that a Chinese president has been at the World Economic Forum at Davos. Why is this so significant now?
Well, as I said, Rachelle, this is all about sea change. What is actually happening here, and this kind of polar opposites. I mean, I assure you, none of us could have 5 years ago predicted that you would have this kind of turn of events. It just did not seem plausible. And now you have Xi up there declaring very, very strongly that he is committed to good governance, protecting the world order, and the continuation of a globalization that has, in fact, helped China tremendously. But I'm not going to sugarcoat it. China has a long way to go. There are issues within China in terms of how they handle debt and other things. Trade has been down. But the fact that they're making this commitment is a very, very strong signal to the rest of the world that China is definitely committed to the current world order, not upsetting it.
And just lastly, as we know, there's some uncertainty going forward about what a Trump presidency will bring. So some people are saying that President Xi could now be the de facto world leader when it comes to globalization and economic issues. What's your take on that?
Well, I think that moment has passed. We will see the other shoe drop in 2 days when Donald Trump gives his inauguration speech. It's hard to imagine that it's going to be different from his tweetonomics or other kind of pronouncements that he's made. I don't think he can beat a retreat at this point. His advisors are trying to say that, oh, please don't pay any attention to this.
Right.
This is just, softening things up. But Xi is, in fact, now very much in line to take global leadership merely because of the economic strength of China and its willingness to continue along a predictable path.
Well, thank you very much. We'll have to leave it there. Current affairs commentator Einar Tangen.